Hello, everybody, and thanks for watching my video slash podcast again. I've just been at this just over a week now. I started last Friday, so can't hardly believe I kept up this pace, but I enjoy it so much, and I like talking about the information, and I'm starting to hear back from people, which is really rewarding. So um, today I'm gonna kind of address the level of difficulty in making the changes in general. So I call this one In a Perfect World. So this is the Ketogenic Fasting Project video number 7, In a Perfect World. You know, in a perfect world, we'd already have figured out what food was best for us, but fortunately that's part of this individualization, at least for me, was there wasn't just a meal plan. It's more like a collection of strategies. It's more like coming to understand how food affects me and, presumably you. Hopefully you'll be able to figure it out too. Um, most of us have been raised on food that's made us sick, which is an unfortunate thing. You're going to find that the difference in how much carbohydrate people can tolerate varies greatly. I know I was watching a podcast on Joe Rogan with Dr. Attia recently, last couple days, and Peter Attia is an amazing athlete, and he was saying his threshold for carbohydrate is extremely low, which kind of surprised me because I thought, super fit people, they're just going to naturally have more capacity to metabolize carbohydrates without consequences, but apparently he knows full well he can't. So, it may not really depend as much on where you're starting from. Maybe it's half that and half genetics. Maybe it's a third each of those plus a third your gut biome. I'm not really sure, but all those things seem like likely suspects, and they're all things we can explore together in the future. In a perfect world, we'd all be able to buy whatever food we wanted, but not only do we all have budgets, some of course a lot bigger than others, but we can't all be running to the market every 5 minutes either. So a lot of us are busy. Some people don't live close to a market. I know I can hit 40 supermarkets on the way home if I really wanted to, but I'm a busy person. I spend a lot of time at work. I spend a lot of time in the office, and I have a lot to do at home. So I don't have a lot of time to go around shopping, and I have a limited budget. So um, you know, other than that, in a perfect world, we wouldn't have the addictions to foods or the habits of eating the wrong foods. Carbohydrates are very enticing. There's a lot of really flavorful stuff out there that we grew up on. And we have a fondness for it, an attraction to it, or whatever. It's pleasing. It can be comforting. And a lot of it we thought was healthy. I mean, who thought like sitting down and having a bowl of cereal, some milk on it, especially low-fat milk, and eat some Cheerios. I ate a lot of those when I was a kid, but unfortunately, I don't think they were compatible with me. So, in a perfect world, we'd already all be healthy, but a lot of us get here because we're not healthy. I probably mentioned this before, but I talk to a lot of other keto people, especially on Facebook groups. I've been in several, and maybe half of them are there just because they wanted to lose weight, and the other half are there for medical reasons. They came to ketogenic diet. I meet people that have epilepsy, and then all kinds of autoimmune diseases. Some of them I couldn't even pronounce. I didn't know what they were. I looked them up and I still don't know how to pronounce them. So that that we're not all coming to this in the best shape. I mean, if you're overweight, you could be 10 pounds overweight or you could be 500 pounds overweight. I mean, we've all seen the shows like My 600-Pound Life, it's just human beings that have just been transformed by what um, doctors might describe as the body's inability to compartmentalize fuel properly, right? And once your fat, which is actually an organ made up of like 8 or 9 billion cells, if you can imagine, you have more fat cells in your body than there are people in the world, which is mind blowing, right? Those cells make up an organ, and potentially the largest organ in your body if you're overweight. And it has an enormous influence over how you feel, how you behave, your mobility. Um, it causes a secretion of hormones and stuff like that. So it's not something to be trifled with, especially if you're overweight, or if you have other health problems. And in a perfect world, we'd all have time to digest all this food and all this information, right? And test and write everything down, and we don't always. I mean, I try, uh, and fortunately, I have that sort of compulsion for, or some people call it in obsession. Um, or I often say I perseverate over certain topics, and this happens to be one of them. So I'm constantly listening to new books, listening to podcasts, reading articles, talking to people every day, and that is probably actually one of the reasons why I'm able to stick to it, because it's always on my mind. I'm always learning new things, which just learning new things can be a great pleasure, right? So I can associate the pleasure of learning new things and trying new things with also improving my health. So in addition to that, in a perfect world, we'd eat local food. It'd all be fresh. It'd be pastured pork, grass-fed beef, cage-free eggs, cage-free chickens, grass-fed butter. We wouldn't have GMOs and pesticides and herbicides and plastics and hormones and all kinds of other stuff in the food and the water to worry about. And we wouldn't eat processed food for the most part, right? But if you read a lot of the books, they'll tell you go home, throw all the bad food out, buy all new food, put everyone in your house on this diet, right? Eliminate all temptation. I heard that, read that, slash um, had that described in several of the books that I listened to and some of the videos. And for me, it just wasn't realistic. I live in a house with I got 5 other people at home, and none of them are on this diet. One of them is pre-diabetic. Doctor's threatening to put her on medication. Maybe she'll come around. I don't know, because her daughter had to go on it. So her daughter doesn't live with us, but surprisingly, um, there's probably a little pressure for that person. But I'm the only one on this diet in my house, and I've been on it over a year. So I eat different from everybody else. Not that we all eat together anyways, but I prepare food for myself. I eat by myself. So even in a house, I mean, there's literally candy sitting out in dishes and stuff. And there'll be fruit too. There's always tangerines, there's always cuties, and what are the other ones? Cuties, and I forgot the name of the other one. But those little easy peel tangerines, bananas, apples, grapes, all that kind of stuff's around. Plus the cereal, the frozen waffles, the syrup and sugar, honey. It's all available. But I uh, I I managed to stick to this in spite of all that. I haven't really had an issue with wanting to cheat. I've had a bite of something here or there, but a bite long after I've been fat converted and confident and like, yeah, okay, so I can eat one bite of that, whatever my girlfriend's trying that I've never had before. I was like, and well, one bite's not gonna hurt me and it's not gonna tempt me. I'm not gonna blow everything because of it. And that's a rare thing. I mean, that happens not even once a month probably. But how did I do that, and why was this diet so much easier for me than all the other ones? That I've never stayed on a diet this long before. because usually by now they're really failing me and I'm on to something else, or I give up. I just, went back to eating. I mean, I love to, occasionally have a breakfast burrito in the morning, but I always ate like an apple on the way to work when I first got hungry. I'd put honey in my coffee. I didn't want to have the sugars. Thought it was better for me. I'd eat a banana. And all the while, my joints were just getting more and more painful. And eventually, I got the psoriasis, and I was just getting fatter. And I didn't feel good. I didn't sleep good, and on and on and on and on. So, we don't live in that perfect world where the food's perfect, the money's perfect, we have plenty of time, there's no temptation. So, we have to work around it. And I've been thinking about this because, I mean, people have mentioned their, budgetary concerns to me, and people have mentioned their physical difficulties to me. And when especially when you're ill, it can be really difficult to make these changes or imagine making these changes. But first of all, I would say don't think about making them all at one time. If you were on a high carbohydrate diet and you made up the rest of it with fat, that would probably be pretty dangerous. But if it was temporary, it's probably not any worse than what you're doing right now anyways. So if you got your mind on changing and you gradually ease into it and you up your fat, you're going to be less hungry and you're going to be less tempted. If you can get rid of that processed carbohydrates, if you can say, like, if you're eating some kind of sugary breakfast cereal, if you can give that up, that would be huge. If you can start backing off the bread, maybe you want to substitute like almond bread or flaxseed bread or something. There's bazillions of, it's easy to make. And that kind of stuff's available. The big box stores have it. The supermarkets have it. They'll rape you on the price, but it's available. You can buy almond flour or flaxseed flour. You can grind them up yourself in a food processor. Mix it with some egg and salt or whatever. And there's tons of recipes. It's not that hard. If I can do it, I don't know that much about baking. And I made it several times and I didn't really have any problems at all. So I'm sure anybody who can do anything in the kitchen can figure it out, especially with all the videos out there. And try new things, try new foods, think about eating, how can I eat a fatty piece of meat and not eat, don't eat like mashed potatoes. Maybe, you want to eat a little potato. Maybe you want to double cook a potato, try some resistant starch. Don't eat corn and grain and stuff like that if you can avoid it. Start cutting those things out or have very small amounts of them and replace them with something else. Most of us are used to eating eggs, so eat eggs. Eat chicken eggs. Eat them scrambled, eat them easy over, sunny side, whatever you want. Poach them. It doesn't really matter. It's a great food. It's a great food source. To be keto, it's a little light on fat. So you probably would want to add some fat to that, but they're actually not even that many calories in an egg. Typically, it's like 27 calories, 29 calories, something like that. So it's not that bad. And I had 5 eggs this morning for breakfast about 11 o'clock with some cheese sprinkled on them, and I was super full. I was mega full. So that was probably a little more than I needed today, but now I know it's like back off on that. I normally don't cook that many, but there was 5 left in that carton, and I was like, I'm not going to eat breakfast till late anyways, 11, 12 o'clock, so this will probably be all right. And then, of course, I had a bag of shredded cheese that I got down to the end too, and I put a little extra in there because it was the end of the bag, so I probably upped by my caloric intake by 1 egg and an ounce or two of cheese that I normally wouldn't have eaten, and it wasn't that bad because it's not like when you overeat something like that, it's not as bad as like Thanksgiving Day. You feel very different when you eat something like that than you do when you eat a Thanksgiving feast because you don't have those carbohydrates in there. And so Just like being hungry is different, being full is different. And the volume of food is drastically less over time. Your stomach shrinks, the caloric density is higher, the nutritional density is higher, and so you slowly need less and less food and you stay satisfied longer. So when you think about making these changes, anticipate it getting easier. Anticipate when that fat and possibly that protein is replacing those carbohydrates, your desire to eat those carbohydrates are going to recede. I mean, I grew up in a house where there was See's candy, there was Halloween candy, there was fresh baked cookies from grandma and mom frequently. There was breakfast cereal, lots of breads, bagels, all that stuff, ice cream, um, all the kind of stuff you would typically see. And I still have a positive feeling about those foods, but I'm not compelled to break my diet to eat them. Even when I'm really hungry, I'm not really tempted to like, oh, well, I don't have anything to eat and I'm hungry, so I'm just gonna pull over here and get a donut or something. I don't feel like doing it. And that's not, I don't have some sort of amazing willpower. This is all stuff that comes as you move forward through this. And I really think talking to other people about it, join a Facebook group. Don't assume that everything everybody says in a Facebook group is correct or going to work for you, but the camaraderie is amazing, and you'll be inspired by how much weight other people have lost and how they've recovered their health and how much better they feel and how much better they look and how much more freedom they have in their life. So all that plays into the success. All that plays into making the change and easing into it. And keep learning. One of the reasons why I'm doing these video podcasts is because I want to give people small doses every day that they could take some time to listen to and not be overwhelmed by it. And on a side note, the reason why the screen is black is because the darker colors are easier on people's eyes. That's more relaxing. And the reason why the text is yellow is because, if you want to look at this before you go to bed and you're looking at your phone or your screen or whatever, there's less blue light. And so it's less likely to make you stay awake longer. Now, it might accidentally put you to sleep, but that's not entirely a bad thing, right? So, myself being a dyslexic, reading's tough. So I try and keep the bulleted points to a minimum. And I try and keep the text easy to read. And I try and keep the videos short for people who are impatient or don't have time, even when they're retired. Those retired old fogies are the worst. So, how do you realistically approach? You change your mindset and say, look, I was eating the wrong food. A lot of that food's very attractive, but I can eat better food, right? I can be a better me just by changing what I eat. And I don't have to stop eating. You might want to try fasting down the road. You could learn about fasting, try fasting, talk to your doctor about this diet, talk to your doctor about the fasting. Maybe you get some support there. I'll tell you, when I first brought it up to my doctor, I was like gonna start ordering lipid panels to see what was happening to my blood. And I was like, well, he's gonna tell me this is a suicide diet or something. Don't do it. Your cholesterol is going to go through the roof and blah blah blah. But I was all prepared. I was like, I'm going to tell him, look, I don't expect you to put your blessing on this or condone it. I just want the blood tests. I want data. Be data driven, proactive, or whatever you want to call it. Like, get in there. Hey, I got a doctor. I pay my premiums every month. Give me some blood tests. And if you want to tell me not to do this, fine. I'm going to do it anyways. But when I was actually talking to the doctor, he looked at my results as far as my weight loss and my allergies and my arthritis and my psoriasis, and he was just silent because I don't think he sees that ever. But all he said in a reply, he's thinking about how much weight I lost, I think, and he's like, well, the only time I see results like that is when people have surgery. When people have bariatric surgeries. Um, and he said, what you're doing is actually a lot safer. So that was his opinion. And we didn't really talk about it that much, and he didn't really give me a hard time about it. I think he was just kind of like stunned because this wasn't just a patient who's like coming complaining and wanting drugs or therapy or whatever, wanting somebody to fix him. This is somebody just saying, "Hey, I'm doing this. Everything's going great, but I want blood tests." And so he probably doesn't have that conversation very often, if ever. So he didn't discourage me at all. He encouraged me by talking about bariatric surgery as being dangerous, which I'd never discussed it with him, but that's the thing he had to compare it to at the moment, and he surprised me with that. So, I mean, I'm sure everybody who's overweight at one point or another goes through their mind, So, anyways, think about that. You could just change the way you eat. You feel better. You'll be glad you're eating that way. You'll stop craving the old stuff, and you could say, I could do this without surgery. So there you go. Compare it to having surgery. I think it's important to focus on what you can eat. I mean, a lot of people like bacon. Bacon's a big deal. I think one of the things about bacon is it smells good. It does have preservatives in it, but like I said in another video, you could find bacon that doesn't even have sugar in it. You can find all natural bacons that don't have the nasty preservatives in it. They're more expensive. But, in a real world, you could buy a cage-free organic egg, or you can buy a factory farm egg and pay a fraction of the price. If you can't afford the good, non-factory farmed, non-cruelty egg, well, go ahead and eat the other one. I mean, if you go eat a donut, it's going to have that egg in it anyways, but it's going to be contaminated with a bunch of sugar. So, do what you got to do on your budget and in your time and move that way. Figure out how to make a quiche without flour in it or something. Eat some bacon, eat some steak, eat some pork. Pork can be cheap. One of the things that I think I do that's really healthy is I get a pork shoulder, which is usually anywhere from $1.25 to $2 a pound. It's a massive piece of meat, and I lean towards getting the one with a big bone in it, which I think that's the picnic cut. There's a picnic and a Boston, but when you cook that bone, you get the benefit of the nutrients in the bone. You get the bone marrow and the minerals and stuff. And so you can put one of those in a crock pot overnight for like 8 hours of salt and pepper and get up and start eating it the next day. And you got a ton of food for very little money. And I think it's good for you. I mean, I don't really have a source for pastured pork right now, but I think you're all right eating something like that. In a perfect world, down the road, we'll have affordable pastured pork and we'll do that. But for now, we'll live with the standard stuff. And try not to focus on what you're going to give up. Try not to think about it. It's not your friend. You might as well look at it like poison, especially if you're already sick and overweight. And it will get easier with time. Right? It's definitely gotten easier. First of all, the whole thing was easier than I ever imagined, but it gets easier the more you practice any of it, whether it's the eating or the fasting or consuming the information, because it all seems to cross-link and relate. You wanna find a certain comfort level, right? So you best, and you look at what you might need to do to get your fat intake up to 75-80%, right? Olive oil, pork fat, beef fat, whatever, chicken fat. Uh, and figure out how you can work that comfortably into your life. Avocados, I know I come from California. Fallbrook's not that far from here. That's like the avocado capital of the world or something. And a lot of people have them in their backyard. So if avocados are really expensive for you, try and find somebody who has an avocado tree. Maybe they'll hook you up. Sometimes Aldi markets have avocados really cheap. The price goes up and down on them all the time. So, I know not everybody can. I planted, I think, 3 or 4 avocado trees that died, and I finally got one that's living. It's got buds on it already. So if you go buy like a standard avocado tree at the hardware store that's been grafted, you don't, and it lives, you can have avocados in a year. So something to think about. I paid 25 bucks for this tree, and I bought the other trees at a store that, if they die within a year, you get to take them back. So I didn't waste a bunch of money really. It took me a long time, but typically avocados don't sprout real well from the pit. Now, if they've been imported from out of the country, and a lot of avocados come from places like Mexico, they've been irradiated, and any of the food from out of the country that's been irradiated, the seeds won't sprout, period. And even the ones from inside the U.S., I haven't had any luck getting them to sprout recently. I've done it in the past, in years past, but in the last, say, 5 years, I haven't got a single one to sprout. So I'm not really sure what's going on, but it can't hurt to try. If you're going to throw that pit away anyways, go ahead and see if it'll sprout. Um, Getting fat adapted, easier for some people than others, but just set it as a goal. Set it as can I ramp my diet up to get to that point where I get into ketosis, to save up some money and get a meter that measures ketones in the blood? Do you have a glucose meter? Can you get used to pricking your finger and knowing what your blood sugar is? It is super powerful. And you'll notice as you keep your blood sugar down, you will feel better. You will feel better all the time. And being in a state of ketosis can be kind of blissful, kind of euphoric sometimes, just like fasting is. Fasting is really just kind of like a super form of ketosis, because you're just trucking on your body fat and your body's happy. And then you get into autophagy, and autophagy makes you feel even better because it's just cleaning everything up. So, you know, if you're working your way up to this, just try new things. Like I said, there's tons of Facebook groups, and there's all these books that are written on it. So you can check out some of the foods that are in there, or just prepare some of the foods you already eat. I mean, a lot of people eat spinach. Well, try just cooking it with some butter, some coconut oil, some bacon fat, whatever. Do that with whatever, mushrooms even, cook them in some bacon fat, or cook them with some sausage, get some fatty breakfast sausage or something. Read the labels, get the one with the least amount of carbs in it, least amount of sugar, and just slowly increase the foods that are better for you. And when you get to a certain point, it gets really easy, you know? So anyways, that's the gist of it. I want to, uh, talk about how to make the changes, how to transition, and I think if you keep learning, even if you just learned a little bit every day, 5 minutes a day, 10 minutes a day, half hour a day, listening to this or something like that, keep your head in the game, keep talking to people, keep trying new foods. You will get there. You will feel better. You will find better health for yourself in the information. Just keep exploring the information. Well, thanks everybody for listening. Please pass my videos or podcasts around. Please ask people to subscribe to my channel. I know I've got about 14 subscribers, and my goal is to get to 1,000. I have no idea how I'm going to do that, but that's my goal. And so this is the end of video 7, and thanks again for listening.